was he the defence secretary or the defensive secretary? He was certainly angry. That much is true. And I was struck by the different roles that those two men played. Defence Secretary Hegseth, former Fox News host, now turned politician, a man who doesn't mince his words, and he was very clear that his focus today was to blame the media for what he said was somehow them questioning the ability of the pilots and the crews that carried out that mission on Saturday night. For what it's worth, I've not read a single bit of copy or bit of news from the US media that has been critical of the mission of those soldiers and airmen who carried out, and women who carried out that strike on Saturday night. What they were doing was publishing the leaked report, which suggested that the efficacy of the strike might not have been total obliteration, as Donald Trump had claimed on Saturday night. Now, what is also definitely the case is that leaked report was incomplete, and Hegseth pointed that out. It was a preliminary low-confidence report. Now it is, I think, fair to say that was not necessarily made clear in the flurry of headlines that came out a couple of days ago when that report was leaked, and it was leaked to multiple US news agencies. But Hegseth was extremely angry and was deflecting from the core of the story to ticking off the media with his very particular style. Then it was the turn, and for me this was the most interesting bit, for Dan Caine there, Raisin Caine as he's known, a decorated Air Force general who Donald Trump appointed to the role of most senior officer, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. It was then his role to outline precisely what happened. And I think this would have happened anyway, even without the controversy of the past few days about whether or not these strikes were successful. This moment would have come anyway, where we got the full detail, not the battle assessment of how successful these strikes were, but what they actually did. And it was fascinating because he went into detail. He talked first of all about the Iranian strikes on Qatar on Monday, which was kind of moderately interesting. But the most interesting thing was about the Saturday strikes on the nuclear sites, and he described how a single intelligence officer has spent 15 years looking into that one site, Fordow nuclear site, and examining it in great detail, living it night and day, dreaming about it at night, he said. A US intelligence official doing that. And over years, they developed a weapon specifically to attack this site, and that is the weapon that they used on Saturday night. And they dropped many of them on this site, and these are weapons that burrow down into the ground and then explode underneath the ground. So that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs said was why you didn't necessarily see massive damage on the surface on the satellite images. It was down beneath. So really remarkable detail there from him. I think this story will without question rumble on, a ticking off for the media to be expected, but fascinating detail from the general as well. And the final point I'd make, and I think this is really important, is Hegseth correctly pointed out at the beginning there that something that's been lost over the course of the past few days, whether it would be through the controversy over the NATO Secretary General's comments about calling Trump daddy and all that sort of stuff, is that at the NATO summit there was a remarkable moment where, yes, NATO members agreed to spend a lot more on defence, but also I think, and what Hegseth didn't really get to, but I think it's really important, is that Donald Trump came away from that summit in The Hague genuinely with a different vibe to him. He seems to now have recognised that Europe is prepared to pay its own way, is prepared to look after its own security. And I think Donald Trump, I think it was a sort of a change moment for Donald Trump. The only caveat is he does tend to change his mind quite a lot, but I think a really important few days.
And you're talking about the importance of this intelligence that they explained about in this press briefing, and as well as the facts accompanied by these videos, which, I mean, extraordinary again to see the explosions and the effect of the explosions that they believe they had.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing. And what has been reported but not necessarily made fully clear is that this weapon, this MOP as it's known, this massive ordnance penetrator, was developed specifically with the task of taking out the Iranian nuclear sites, and that they dropped, where was it? It says here they dropped the first of these bombs was dropped to take off the cap over the shaft of which leads down into this underground site. That, they said, happened successfully. The second, third, fourth, and fifth bombs, they would then burrow at 1,000 feet per second and explode in the mission space underneath. And then the sixth bomb was dropped just in case any one of the others didn't go off, and they claimed that everything was 100% successful. So this there on the left is the second, third, fourth, or fifth bomb going into the mission space underneath and then blowing up. These, incidentally, are not from the actual attack on Saturday night. My understanding is that this is part of the preparatory work that went into making sure that this is successful. So you can see this extraordinary imagery here that shows how these weapons work and explains why, if a layman is looking at the satellite imagery and says, well, hang on a minute, it doesn't look like there's much damage here. Well, that's why, because it penetrates down into the earth and then goes off underneath it. So very interesting stuff there, and I think certainly adds to what we knew before now.
Good to clarify that about the provenance of those pictures, Mark. So later on today, we've got another briefing from Caroline Levitt. That's at 6 p.m. our time. And then what's happening this evening? President Trump's slated to take part in something called a big, beautiful event. One big, beautiful event.
Oh, do you know what, Jane? You've got me there, because everything's moving so fast. I actually don't know. You know more than me on that. I don't know what Donald Trump's up to tonight. All I can tell you is that he's back at the White House after what he sees as a very successful NATO summit. What the others, the kids maybe, they see as a successful NATO summit, despite the sycophancy, or maybe because of the sycophancy. Maybe it was required to get Donald Trump on board. That went very well. We've heard from Hegseth this morning. Caroline Levitt at 6 p.m. your time. She's the press secretary. She will give, I think, a broader assessment of how the past few days have gone from the administration's perspective. And I'll go and find out what Donald Trump's up to tonight.
It's interesting, though, Mark, seeing this response, as you say, President Trump coming back from NATO with a bit of pep in his step, it certainly seems, compared to perhaps the G7, just a couple of weeks ago, where he sort of seemed to come back full of thunder. And then this press conference today, trying to put to bed what he's been so aggrieved about in the press over the last 48 hours. What does this pushback tell us about perhaps levels of paranoia within the administration, about the public discourse?
It's a very good question. I think it does suggest a level of paranoia, certainly of irritation, that they feel like they're not getting a fair deal. I mean, look at Donald Trump's approval rating. It's not good. And I think, I actually haven't seen the latest polling since the weekend, which on the face of it, you need to remember on the whole Iran crisis that specifically he has done, if you're looking through a tight lens, he's done a pretty impressive job in getting two sides, Iran and Israel, to stop fighting. That's remarkable. You can't take that away from him. It shows that the level of power that he, or leverage that he seems to have over whether it be Netanyahu or indirectly over the supreme leader in Iran as well. They are not fighting right now. They were last week. That is his win. But you've got to take a step back and look at the broader picture. The animosity between these two sides, that's not gone. The problems are still remaining. And so there's a long way to go before you can claim that this is mission accomplished as he might want to. And then, of course, it's distracted from the other crises. In Gaza, things are no better. In fact, they are worse now than they were just a few days ago. That crisis is not solved. And Ukraine, the thing he said he'd solve in a day, he said he was being sarcastic yesterday when he had claimed he could solve it in a day. But it's very much not solved. So many, many challenges ahead for the Trump administration.